I believed that divorce would liberate me. I believed it was the solution to the myriad of emotions that had ensnared me for years. Yet, in retrospect, I find myself feeling more ensnared than I ever have before. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Heather. At 32, I believed I had everything mapped out, or so I convinced myself. In the tapestry of my life, I was a wife and a mother of two, navigating what I believed to be the dream alongside my husband, Matt. He was a man of integrity, a man of reason. He provided no grounds for my skepticism, yet I couldn't shake the feeling.
I'm uncertain.
I simply sensed. Uninterested. Perhaps that isn't the most fitting term, yet it is the sole expression that comes to mind. Weary of the role of a wife, weary of the duties of a mother, weary of it all. A sense of absence enveloped me, as if I were on the outskirts of an experience I longed to be part of. I often find myself lost in the endless scroll of social media, observing women reveling in the nightlife, at bars, at parties, embracing freedom and joy, unencumbered by any constraints. Jealousy coursed through me, and I won't deny it. It was hardly a comfort when my closest friend Jessie would ring me every weekend, regaling me with tales of how extraordinary her life had become now that she was single and embracing every moment to the fullest. Every Friday and Saturday night, she would immerse herself in the revelry, indulging in drinks with her friends, blissfully unconcerned about the weight of her responsibilities. Without children or a spouse to consider, she would send me snapshots of her adventures with various guys, and I found myself sitting there, overwhelmed by the sense that I was missing something monumental. Matt never hindered my time with friends, however. He did establish certain boundaries. He expressed his disapproval of the lifestyle choices made by Jessie and her circle. I understand, truly I do. They were untamed and reckless, and truthfully, I had once embraced that lifestyle before Matt and I found our way to stability. Once I reveled in joy, yet now it seems like a fading echo of the past. The essence of enjoyment had shifted, transcending mere amusement. It revolved around the essence of liberation. At that moment I was unaware, yet deep down that was the very thing I yearned for. I never envisioned myself as this maternal figure, this spouse who was perpetually bound to the home, always responsible for every little detail. I yearned to experience the thrill of life once more. I yearned for a sense of liberation. I began to lend an ear to my friends who are single. They remarked that one deserves to embrace joy once more, and that Matt is unlikely to alter his ways, being too entrenched in his habits. Indeed, they were correct about one aspect. He established his limits, and I resented them. I resented his refusal to allow me the freedom to go out whenever I wished. Yet, he wasn't the type to exert control. He was purely rational. He was concerned about me becoming intoxicated and mingling with a crowd that seemed indifferent to the welfare of others. Yet, that no longer held any significance for me. I felt a strong desire to venture outside. I yearned for untamed freedom. On a particular Friday, I gathered my things, slipped into a fresh dress, and informed Matt that I was heading out with the girls. He lifted an eyebrow, a signal that should have set off alarms, yet in that instant I was indifferent. I stood on the precipice of existence, eager to embrace life in all its fullness. He refrained from arguing, simply advising me to take care. That night, I sensed a profound reclamation of my existence. In the midst of a vibrant gathering, I found myself swaying with friends, sharing laughter with unfamiliar faces, and surrendering to the moment. It was an exhilarating experience. With each attempt, my desire only grew stronger. My mind was elsewhere, far removed from thoughts of Matt or the children. My thoughts were solely consumed by my own existence. And therein lay the dilemma, was it not? As the weeks unfolded, a sense of discontent began to brew within Matt. He wasn't exactly throwing a fit, yet it was clear that he was far from pleased. He would inquire about my evenings spent away, and I would merely dismiss it as if it were of little consequence. I continued to fulfill my role as a devoted mother, diligently managing the household, didn't I? I failed to perceive the issue at hand. However, it was Matt's actions that marked the beginning of a palpable tension in the air. One evening he took a moment to sit with me and said, "Heather, I understand your desire to go out and enjoy yourself, but this situation extends beyond just your own wishes now. As a mother and a wife, we carry our share of responsibilities." I was not inclined to listen. I simply lost my composure. I never intended to embrace the roles of mother and wife for eternity. I remain a person, Matt. I long to escape the monotony of this house, where each day blurs into the next with endless cooking and cleaning. I beheld the pain reflected in his gaze, yet it stirred no concern within me. Frustration coursed through me, a tempest of emotion stirred by his inability to comprehend. It was infuriating that he wasn't the type to simply allow me the freedom to pursue my desires. I longed for him to simply allow me to exist, and his discontent with that notion ignited a fire of frustration within me. I despised how he made me feel as though my desire for enjoyment was an act of selfishness. In retrospect, I realize I was mistaken. In that moment, I recognize I should not have reacted so harshly. Yet it seemed as though the walls were closing in around me. The more he established boundaries, the more I found myself in defiance. I refused to be limited by the role he had assigned to me, but you know what? At my core, I lacked the courage to confront the true nature of my actions. I found it difficult to confront the reality of my own recklessness and selfishness. I continued to venture out, turning a blind eye to the issues that were quietly accumulating between us. Throughout it all, Jessie stood by my side, offering encouragement and assuring me that I was on the right path. She would remark that Matt is simply too controlling. Happiness is your rightful pursuit. I continued to listen to her, oblivious to the fact that I was crafting my own demise. The essence of enjoyment had shifted, transcending mere amusement. It transcended mere freedom. It revolved around evading the obligations that accompanied the depth of a committed relationship, the weight of motherhood. Yet it eluded my gaze. Not at this moment. Here I find myself amidst the chaos of my own making. I believed that stepping out and embracing joy would liberate me. Yet here I am, ensnared in a tangle of regrets, pondering whether I've irrevocably lost Matt. Should you believe this tale revolves around my triumphant journey to self-improvement, you are mistaken. Not at this moment anyway. It became evident that the situation was deteriorating when Matt ceased to inquire about my whereabouts. Initially, he would pose inquiries such as, "Who is at the wheel? At what hour do you anticipate your return?" They were merely ordinary inquiries, typical of what a husband might ask. Yet gradually he ceased. "Do not be safe. Do not hesitate to reach out if you require my assistance." Silence reigns. I persuaded myself that his indifference signified a lack of concern, and if he was indifferent, then why should I be invested? On a Friday evening, I found myself in the bathroom, meticulously applying my makeup as if preparing for a first date. There was this snug red dress, untouched since the days before our children arrived, and tonight, a surge of boldness coursed through me. Jessie sent me a message. "Darling, you must dazzle tonight. Only the absence of maternal energy is permitted." I chuckled to myself, realizing that tonight was devoid of any maternal energy. Matt strolled by the bathroom, caught my eye for a fleeting moment, then came to a halt. For a fleeting moment, I believed he might utter a word, perhaps compliment my appearance or inquire about my destination. Yet he remained there, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, observing me intently. "Are you truly embarking on this journey once more?" He spoke, his tone steady yet incisive, akin to a needle piercing flesh. I gazed at him through the reflection of the mirror. "What are you up to, Matt?" I quickly retorted, working the foundation a bit too vigorously into my cheek. He gently shook his head, a subtle gesture of disbelief. Silence reigns. "Enjoy yourself, Heather." I have exhausted the conversation. That moment should have signaled my retreat, yet I found myself chuckling softly to myself. Perhaps you might consider joining me one of these evenings. Hold on, I seem to have overlooked something. Your disdain for enjoyment is palpable. I spoke with a smile, yet the tone was anything but light-hearted. It was a sharp thrust, a humble one. His gaze sharpened. No, I understand that enjoyment doesn't have to be accompanied by regret and poor choices. He pivoted and strode away before I had the chance to reply. Poor choices. For some reason that lingered in my mind. I found myself poised before the mirror, mascara wand clutched in my hand, gazing intently at my reflection. I reassured myself that he was merely indulging in theatrics. Yet, a fragment of my being recognized the truth in his words. Jessie and her friends were immersed in a world of enjoyment. They were untamed, engaging in conversations with strangers, playfully teasing the bartenders, and partaking in activities I was certain I would never want Matt to witness. Yet I was not one of them. I assure you, I was not engaging in any form of deceit. I wasn't engaged in anything particularly wrong. That was the narrative I spun for myself. Brushed it aside, seized my clutch, and departed without uttering another word to him. On that particular evening, we found ourselves at a rooftop bar nestled in the heart of downtown. Resounding melodies, dazzling illuminations, and a crowd adorned in their finest attire. By the time I arrived, Jessie had already indulged in 2 drinks. There she is, Heather. She shouted, enveloping me in her arms as if I had just returned from battle. Girl, you look good, she remarked, her gaze sweeping over me from head to toe. Matt is bound to be quite upset this evening. She proclaimed it as if it were a badge of honor. No, he's lost interest now. I wasn't truthful. Excellent, that signifies you are truly embracing life. That sentence resonated with me in a profound way. At last embracing life? As if I hadn't been truly alive all this time? As Jessie handed me a drink, I allowed her words to permeate my thoughts. For a time I allowed myself to embrace that belief. I twirled, I chuckled, I surrendered to the moment. It was a satisfying experience. Wasn't I free? Until the pleasure faded away. I arrived home at the stroke of 2:34 in the early morning hours. The time on my phone held my gaze, as if it were silently critiquing my every moment. I entered softly, heels clutched in my hand, making every effort to avoid disturbing anyone. The house lay shrouded in darkness, save for the flickering glow emanating from the living room television. I glanced inside and found Matt slumbering on the couch, arms folded, as if he had been anticipating my arrival but ultimately surrendered to sleep. Typically, I would have slipped by him unnoticed, yet for some inexplicable reason, I found myself lingering, captivated by the sight of him in slumber. It was peculiar to behold him in such a state, maintain a serene demeanor, devoid of irritation or conflict. Only Matt. In those early days of our marriage, I found such joy in watching him sleep. Yet now it stirred within me an emotion I wished to avoid. It filled me with disdain. I loathed the sensation of being cast as the villain. I followed my usual course of action. I chose to overlook it. I ascended the stairs, slipped into my pajamas, and nestled into bed as if all was well. The transformation in Matt was initially imperceptible. He was neither cold nor distant. He remained silent. Gone are the lengthy dialogues that stretch into the night. Gone are the fleeting instances of tenderness. He pressed his lips to mine before departing for the day, continued to engage in play with the children. He continued to manage his duties with diligence. Yet there lingered an absence. It was during a seemingly ordinary dinner one night that I truly began to see it. As I sat at the table, my fingers danced across the screen of my phone, lost in a digital reverie. Indeed, it's quite impolite. In my wanderings through the digital realm, I stumbled upon a humorous meme regarding husbands, which amusingly suggested that they might feign a dramatic demise at the mere request to watch the children for an hour. I chuckled and exclaimed it aloud. "Oh my goodness, this is absolutely you, Matt." He remained silent, devoid of laughter. He gazed at me, and in the most composed, earnest tone I had ever encountered, he remarked, "Yeah, real funny, Heather." Then he returned to his meal as if I were invisible. Jessie might have labeled it as sassy, yet it lacked that quality entirely. It was truly extraordinary. A sense of disappointment washed over me. Once dinner was concluded, I tucked the children into their beds as Matt busied himself with tidying the kitchen. As I descended, I found him diligently wiping the counter. Feeling a surge of boldness, I inquired, "You good?" He continued to wipe the counter, seemingly oblivious to my presence. I sighed in exasperation and made another attempt. "Matt, are you all right?" He let the rag fall onto the counter, resting his weight on it with both hands, exhaling a breath as if he had been holding it in for hours. "Heather, are you truly aware of your actions?" He spoke in a hushed tone. A frown creased my brow. "What is the implication of that?" He shook his head as if addressing a child who simply couldn't grasp the concept. "It signifies that you are engaging in a game with individuals who will not remain present once the final curtain falls. Jessie and her companions? They will transition to the next gathering. In the meantime, you will find yourself here gazing about, pondering what has slipped away from you." His calmness filled me with disdain. I yearned for him to raise his voice. I wished for his anger, for in that fury, I could label him as controlling. Yet he remained composed, excessively tranquil. "Oh, do spare me," I retorted. "So, you consider yourself quite the sage, do you?" Mister. Logic, mister. Perfect, how delightful it must be to recline upon your throne of wisdom, while I tirelessly handle the cooking, cleaning, and nurturing of our children." I crossed my arms, a gesture of triumph, yet he remained unfazed, refusing to take the bait. He simply gazed at me as if my words were devoid of meaning. "You're not trapped, Heather," he stated, his tone devoid of emotion yet resolute. "You are making a choice to exist in this way." He then pivoted and strode away. The echo of that line lingered in my mind throughout the night. You are not confined. You are making a choice to exist in this way. Once I felt free, but now I found myself ensnared. Ensnared by the choices I've made. Confined by my yearning for liberation. Jessie was not confined. Was she truly free then? She was unencumbered by a husband, untouched by the laughter of children, and free from the constraints of rules. Yet, a vivid memory surfaced of that night. I found myself at her apartment, the aftermath of an exhilarating evening still lingering in the air. The scene was chaotic. Garments scattered in every direction. Dirty dishes linger in the sink. An air mattress occupies the living room. A makeshift solution born from the inability to invest in a proper couch. Jessie found herself unshackled. Yet the reality of her existence appeared far less liberated than the curated snapshots on Instagram suggested. Reluctantly, I found myself considering the possibility that perhaps Matt had a point. Perhaps I was engaged in a contest I had no chance of conquering. Yet I found myself unwilling to acknowledge that truth. Not at this moment. The atmosphere between Matt and me was charged, palpable, as if the very air around us crackled with unspoken words. We weren't raising our voices or forcefully shutting doors, yet an unsettling tension lingered in the air. His fleeting glances, the sparse words exchanged only when absolutely needed, and the heavy silence that enveloped the house each night after the children were tucked in. The noise was palpable, despite the absence of spoken words. Though I recognized his distress, I found myself lacking the inclination to mend it. If he chose to embrace misery, that was his decision alone. I reassured myself that my actions were not misguided. I continued to nurture the children and maintain the household, largely holding everything together, and I certainly deserved to indulge in some enjoyment as well. I had devoted countless years to the role of the dutiful wife. The following weekend, Jessie sent me a text. "Are you venturing out tonight or what? We're ascending to the rooftop once more." I acted without a moment's hesitation. I replied, "Sure thing, I'll be prepared by 9. As I prepared for that evening, I resolved to surpass my previous appearance. In a form-fitting black dress and the new heels I had acquired for a momentous event, though this was not that. I wore my hair slicked back into a bun so immaculate it could easily be mistaken for the work of a professional stylist. I even misted on that vanilla-scented perfume that Matt adored, though it wasn't for his benefit. He sat in the living room, headphones snugly in place, engrossed in yet another tedious documentary, as was his usual habit. As I glided by, the sound of my heels echoed against the hardwood floor. Each step measured and intentional. Not a single word escaped his lips, nor did he lift his gaze. A slight sting coursed through me from that moment. Yet I continued onward, my head held high as if I had a point to demonstrate. Upon my arrival at the club, the atmosphere crackled with an exhilarating energy. The thumping bass reverberated through the air, bodies swaying in unison on the packed dance floor, while Jessie exuded an air of confidence, as if she were the queen of the night. Drinks were in our hands in no time, laughter bubbling up like a group of high schoolers who had just slipped out past curfew. And then the spotlight arrived. You're familiar with that type. A handful of glances exchanged from the far side of the room, a gentleman inadvertently colliding with you, and yet another extending an invitation to purchase a drink. It was a satisfying experience, I must admit. After years of being a wife and mother, when the gaze of others shifts and you find yourself seen as desirable once more, it can be disorienting, stirring up feelings of youth and possibility within you. Among them, one individual, Travis, captured attention. He was unassuming, lacking a boisterous entourage by his side. He exuded a certain smoothness, impeccably groomed, with a charming smile that effortlessly conveyed the right sentiments without any hint of forced effort. We engaged in conversation for a bit, nothing too wild, merely light banter. He exuded a certain calmness, and I convinced myself that my only desire was for conversation, or at least that was the narrative I crafted in my mind. As Jessie caught sight of our conversation, a playful grin spread across her face. "Ooh, he's quite charming," she murmured, giving me a gentle nudge with her elbow. "Who is Matt?" Her laughter rang out. I let out a sigh of exasperation, yet I remained rooted in place. The following morning, I stirred from sleep to find a throbbing headache, as if a marching band were parading through my skull. As I turned my phone over from its resting place on the nightstand, the messages came into view. "Travis, did you arrive home safely? I truly enjoyed our conversation. You stand apart from the women I typically encounter. Feel free to reach out if you're interested in going out sometime." I lingered for a moment, gazing intently at the screen. It wasn't as if I had committed any wrongdoing, was it? I didn't cheat. It was merely a conversation. Rather than simply deleting the messages and continuing with my day, I chose to engage and respond. "What about me? Indeed, I arrived home safely. Last night was undeniably enjoyable." His response arrived swiftly. Indeed, my words were sincere. "You stand apart." A smile crept across my face at that moment. I'm uncertain of the reason. In the days that followed, it evolved into a small ritual. Travis would send a message and I would reply. It was neither wild nor crazy, yet there was an undeniable thrill in the air. A fresh beginning. Something beyond the realm of dishes, laundry, or trips to the grocery store. I would steal glances at my phone while Matt busied himself in the kitchen, crafting swift replies whenever his gaze was averted. I reassured myself that it posed no danger. I made a promise to myself to cease, yet here I am still entangled in the same web. It was on a fateful night that the situation erupted into chaos. As I lounged on the couch, my fingers danced over the screen of my phone, the house quiet with the kids tucked away in their beds. while Matt toiled away upstairs, immersed in his work project. I found myself engaged in a light-hearted exchange with Travis, chuckling at one of his amusing quips. In that moment it reached my ears. Echoes of footsteps. As I lifted my gaze, I saw Matt descending the stairs, a phone cradled in his hand. His expression bore no trace of anger. It lay devoid of any markings, serene, reminiscent of times past. He lingered at the foot of the stairs, his gaze fixed upon me. "You forgot to log out of your Messages app on the iPad," he remarked, raising the device as if it were a crucial piece of evidence in a courtroom drama. I stood still, caught in a moment of sheer disbelief. My heart raced in that peculiar way, yet I endeavored to maintain composure, as if I hadn't just been exposed in the most vivid manner. "I see." I feigned ignorance, acting as though his words were entirely lost on me. His jaw clenched slightly, yet he maintained his composure. "Travis, you're familiar with him, aren't you?" He gently tapped on the screen several times. "You appeared quite amicable with him." Heat rushed to my face. Is this for real at this moment? Are you rummaging through my messages as if you were a curious teenager? I snapped in response, casting all the blame his way. Timeless evasion. "I didn't need to pry, Heather," he said, moving in closer. "You placed it precisely in that spot." Messages emerging in rapid succession. I found it without the need to search. He inclined his head, his gaze fixed intently upon me. However, I did peruse them. Every single one. My stomach plummeted. "You stand apart from the women I typically encounter." "How profoundly poetic," he remarked, his tone dripping with irony. "What aspect of this is purely enjoyable once more?" I kindly ask for your assistance in gaining clarity. I rose to my feet, arms folded, striving to maintain my composure. "Matt, it's really not a big deal. He's merely an acquaintance I encountered at the club. Our conversation unfolded, and that was all there was to it. It feels as though you're treating me as if I've been unfaithful or done something wrong." Engaging in conversation? He uttered it as though it were an unfamiliar term. He cast his eyes upon the iPad, fingers gliding over the screen, before voicing the words that appeared before him. "You're charming, but alas, I'm married," he read with deliberate slowness, his gaze rising to connect with mine. "Is that merely conversation, then?" At that moment I found myself on the defensive. "Very well, and what of it?" "I assure you, Matt, I did nothing at all. I refrained from making any physical contact with him. I refrained from kissing him." Silence reigned and nothing unfolded. "Cease with the theatrics." "Indeed, you merely indulged it," he retorted, his gaze sharpening. "It seems you might be overlooking the issue, doesn't it?" "Absolutely not." I raised my hands in exasperation. "If only you could break free from your monotonous ways, perhaps I wouldn't seek excitement elsewhere to truly feel alive." It struck him with undeniable force. It was evident in his expression. He nodded slowly, his lips forming a tight line as if he were containing a secret within. He surveyed me from head to toe as if I were a new discovery. "All right," he said, his voice so calm it sent a ripple of unease through me. "Very well, Heather." He pivoted and strode off just like that. "Where are you headed?" I inquired, trailing behind him as if a newfound concern had taken root within me. He remained facing away. "To find dullness in another place." He seized his keys, donned his jacket, and checked his phone. There was no shouting, no threats. Only a silence punctuated by deliberate, measured movements that carried a weight greater than any battle we had ever faced. "Is that so? Is this what you find yourself engaged in at this moment?" I declared, my arms still crossed, attempting to portray myself as the one wronged. "Are you really just going to walk out?" He paused at the threshold, casting a glance over his shoulder, his eyes reflecting the same familiar disappointment. "No, I won't be leaving. I am simply granting you the freedom you desired." He stepped outside, closing the door softly behind him. I lingered in silence, my gaze fixed upon that door for what felt like an eternity. I reassured myself he will return. He invariably returns. Yet on this occasion uncertainty lingered within me. As the days slipped by, Matt remained absent from home. Silence reigns. No messages, no phone calls, nothing at all. Initially, it didn't seem significant to me. I assumed he was attempting to convey a message, a period of cooling down reminiscent of our previous experiences. He would return home, and we would share one of those uncomfortable, quiet dinners, after which, gradually, life would resume its usual rhythm. Yet, on this occasion, everything felt altered. As the week drew to a close, I began to sense it creeping in. There were no missed calls from him. No, where might you be? Written works. No, could you collect the messages from the kids? Silence reigns. Felt as though I were invisible. Silence enveloped the house, a heavy stillness that lingered in the air. The stillness weighed more than all our disputes put together. It was on Friday that I heard the unmistakable sound of the front door unlocking. In that fleeting moment, a wave of relief washed over me. At last, I maintained my composure, lounging on the couch, casually scrolling through my phone as if it held no significance for me. Yet as I lifted my gaze, there he was. He found himself in the company of others. He entered alongside a man clad in a navy blue suit, who bore a leather briefcase in hand. Neither a friend nor family, but rather a lawyer. A knot formed in my stomach. "Matt, what is this all about?" I inquired, attempting to maintain a sense of composure, yet a tightening sensation gripped my chest. He stated plainly, his gaze averted, that he was merely here to collect a few items. His voice carried a chill, an air of detachment, as if I were merely an unfamiliar presence within the walls of the home. The lawyer entered behind him, positioning himself by the door as if he were a sentinel guarding the threshold. I perched on the edge of the couch, my heart pounding in my chest. "What do you mean by grab some things?" "Oh, come now, Matt, you're being quite theatrical." He remained silent. He strode purposefully to the closet in the hallway, seized a duffel bag, and began to pack it with his clothes, chargers, and all the essentials he could think of. He navigated with an assured grace, as if this were a familiar dance he had mastered long ago. "Matt, really?" I couldn't help but scoff, rising from slumber at this moment. "Are you truly preparing to pack a bag? Is that for real?" Following a heated exchange, he carefully closed the bag, fastening it with a deliberate motion before draping it over his shoulder. At last he pivoted and met my gaze. Truly gazed upon me. What I beheld was not anger. It was tranquility. "I'm done, Heather," he said, his voice unwavering and composed. "Cease the disputes. Cease the cooling off. I have reached my limit." I blinked, grappling with the weight of it all. "Have you finished?" I chuckled a bit more boisterously than intended. "Very well indeed. Proceed. Flee in a manner befitting a coward. You'll return as you always do." He remained unyielding. There was no dispute. He observed me with a serene, unwavering composure that diminished my sense of self more than I had ever experienced. At that moment, the lawyer began to articulate their thoughts. "Mrs. Callahan, please be advised that you will receive the formal divorce papers on Monday. This serves as a courtesy notice." My heart came to a sudden halt. I stood still, my gaze fixed on Matt. "Separation?" I echoed, nearly in fits of laughter. "It seems as though you've been meticulously crafting this narrative." I cast my gaze upon him, searching for a flicker of response, yet he remained utterly unresponsive. Not a single blink. So that's how it is it? Are you really going to file for divorce and just walk away as if it's that easy?" Matt inclined his head, regarding me with an expression that suggested he found me lacking in speed of thought. "Indeed, Heather," he remarked, his voice carrying a distinct sharpness. "I shall proceed precisely in that manner. Kindly, I let out a weary sigh, my eyes drifting upward in exasperation. You may believe you're clever, but I'm well aware of the game at play. It has been a decade since we exchanged our vows, Matt. I will receive 50%. Do you truly believe you can stroll out of here with your hefty paycheck while I walk away empty-handed? I chuckled derisively, shaking my head at him. No, it doesn't function that way, darling. He chose not to engage in a dispute. He refrained from raising his voice. He strolled into the kitchen, snatched his keys from the counter, and pivoted to meet my gaze one final time. Do you honestly believe I didn't anticipate this? He inquired, a brow arched in curiosity. Did you really believe I was oblivious to this? What is it that you are referring to? I retorted, narrowing my eyes at him as if he had completely lost his senses. I knew you'd make a mistake, he remarked, shaking his head as if I were a child struggling with basic arithmetic. Did you really believe I was oblivious to your transformation, Heather? The evening spent reveling the allure of new attire. Those spontaneous nights when the call of fresh air beckoned? I've been observing you for months now. He advanced, his gaze firmly fixed on me. The words exchanged, the companions from the gathering, the twilight hours you believed I remained unaware of. I found myself in a state of anticipation, hoping you would provide me with a justification. Indeed you did. A wave of pallor washed over me, leaving my face devoid of color. My lips parted, yet silence enveloped me. You played checkers, he remarked, gesturing towards me. Yet I engaged in a game of chess. He delved into his jacket pocket, retrieved a neatly folded piece of paper, and let it flutter onto the table. It glided effortlessly over the surface, coming to a halt directly before me. With a moment's pause, I seized it and opened it with a swift motion. I cast a swift glance over it. A post-nuptial agreement. My heart came to a sudden halt. Do you recall signing it 4 years ago? Matt spoke, his tone calm and measured, reminiscent of someone who had already claimed victory. In the days when I received that significant promotion at work, we engaged in discussions about safeguarding our finances, should either of us take a misstep in our monetary decisions. He offered a nonchalant shrug. Your preoccupation with spending the extra money left you oblivious to the details within. You affixed your signature as if it held no weight at all. No, I muttered, shaking my head. Absolutely not. This is not what it seems. My hands trembled, clutching the paper as if I could rip it to shreds and make it vanish. I hurriedly scanned the page, my eyes darting across the text, desperate for any indication that my claim still held weight. Yet it stood out, unmistakable and clear. Should infidelity occur, the party at fault relinquishes any right to spousal support, assets, or marital funds. No, I whispered, blinking fiercely as if I could erase the sight from my mind. This is not reality. It's undeniably real, Heather, Matt declared, standing firm like a man who has nothing left to fear. I had it notarized and submitted to the bank on the very same day. All that bears my name remains solely mine. Everything, the house, the savings, my retirement, the stocks, it's all intertwined. Matt, I uttered, my voice trembling, a sense of urgency creeping in now. We have children to think about, Matt. Our journey together spans a decade. One cannot simply. I inhaled unsteadily. This isn't how it should be done. He inclined his head, his gaze icy. I assure you, Heather, I am not imposing anything upon you. You brought this upon yourself. I assure you, Matt, I did not cheat. I did not engage in any dishonest behavior. I erupted, my voice rising in intensity. Sending a message to someone does not constitute infidelity. Engaging in conversation with others is not an act of deceit. Infidelity transcends the physical realm. Heather. His voice sliced through the air, each word piercing with an intensity that lingered longer than the one before. Have you breached the agreement? It exists in stark contrast, devoid of color. Your feelings on the matter are inconsequential. I prepared to voice my dissent, yet the words faltered, trapped within my throat. He was indeed correct. I have affixed my signature to it. Relish the freedom you sought, he remarked, his eyes narrowing as he clutched the handle of his duffel bag. You are now unshackled just as you desired. Free from the mundane, liberated from constraints. It's just you and the intriguing stranger you can reach out to in the early hours of the morning. A primal urge surged within me, begging for release in the form of a scream. A desire to shatter something lingered within me. Yet I remained there paralyzed. Take care, Heather, he said, making his way to the door. His attorney trailed behind. He did not slam it. He cast no glance behind him. He has just departed. I stood there, clutching that paper in my hand as if it were ablaze. My gaze lingered on that clause once more, poring over it repeatedly, hoping against hope that I had overlooked some detail. Unfaithfulness. Penalties. Resources. I believed I was the one orchestrating the game. I believed I held the reins of my own destiny. However, Matt's gaze had been fixed on me throughout the entire duration. He emerged victorious, and it was not merely a win. He brought my king to its knees. I remained motionless, grasping that piece of paper as if its very essence could transform with the weight of my grip. My gaze remained locked on the phrases I had internalized countless times within my mind. Renounces any entitlement to spousal support, assets, or marital funds. The burden of it finally settled upon me. Beyond mere words lies the essence of reality. There is no dwelling. There are no savings. There is no assistance available. There exists no contingency strategy. I collapsed onto the couch, my hand clutching the paper, the edges crumpling beneath my fingers. My chest felt empty, as if every breath had been siphoned away from my lungs. I lingered in that moment, enveloped in a profound sense of numbness. Not a single tear. Calmness prevails. Merely devoid. What led us to this point? I gazed at the coffee table, my fingers following the contours of the cup stains, reflecting on each fleeting moment that brought me to this point. Every casual excuse of a night out with friends. Each time I glanced at my phone, a smile crept across my face at a message from someone insignificant. Each time I cast a weary glance at Matt whenever he inquired about my destination. I believed I was quite clever. I believed I was invincible. Yet Matt remained silent. Silent men hold a perilous edge. He anticipated it long before I ever could. He refrained from raising his voice. He chose not to engage in a dispute. He lingered in anticipation. Enduring. Measured. He understood that I would inevitably stumble over my own pride, and he laid the snare with exquisite precision. I engaged in the brief encounter. He strategized for the future. He has departed now. I'm back, darling. No longer will I sit at the table, half listening as I scroll through my phone. No longer will there be weekend excursions with him at the wheel, fully aware of my disdain for it. Departed. I surveyed the surroundings of the house, the very house I traverse each day, seldom pausing to truly value its presence. The kitchen island that once served as our dining spot for takeout meals. The couch, my sanctuary where I would immerse myself in the endless scroll of Instagram, pretending that life held no excitement for me. It no longer resonated with the warmth of home. It resembled a hollow vessel. I reflected on the countless moments when I had persuaded myself that I was the one wronged. He was the one who needed to rise to the occasion. He was the one who restrained me. Yet, in retrospect, I perceive it clearly. He was not the source of the issue. I was there. My desires reached beyond the ordinary. I believed I was worthy of greater things. Yet, nothing more arrived. All those random fellows I messaged, not a single one would stand by my side in this moment. Not a single one would take the time to pack me a bag if I found myself in need. None of them would linger following a dispute. They existed merely as names illuminated on a screen. Interruptions. Individuals who briefly ignited a sense of desire within me, only to swiftly shift their attention to another woman engaged in the same pursuits I was. I deceived myself. I believed I had unraveled every mystery. I believed I had him completely under my control. After a decade of marriage, I believed I was invincible. I once believed that love was synonymous with safety. No matter the circumstances, I would always ensure I had a contingency in place. Yet, love offers no promise of safety. Affection demands reverence. Somewhere along the journey, I misplaced that. I reclined on the couch, thoughts swirling in a tempest within my mind. How was I meant to embark on a new beginning? Years had passed since I last engaged in work. I was engrossed in the vibrant tapestry of my own existence, while he meticulously crafted his own narrative. I subsisted on his earnings, indulged in my desires, and reassured myself that I had earned it. However, at this moment I find myself without a paycheck. My savings are non-existent. He is not in my possession. Tears stung my eyes, yet I held them at bay. I wished to hold back the tears. Weeping seemed almost effortless. It seemed akin to acknowledging a loss. Yet the truth remained. I had been vanquished. Game over. He had everything meticulously planned. He lingered, anticipating my unraveling. Indeed I did. I cast a fleeting look at my phone, resting on the couch cushion. Beside me, the very device I employed to seek the gaze of unfamiliar faces. For a fleeting moment, the idea of reaching out to him crossed my mind, to express my remorse, to plead for his return. Kindly, Matt. It was not my intention. Yet I was acutely aware of how that would unfold. He remained silent. He didn't even bother to read it. For when a man of Matt's caliber sets his resolve, there is no turning back. He did not make a dramatic exit. He closed the door gently. He departed with tranquility in his heart, for he had already emerged victorious. What about me? Here I am, enveloped by all that I once believed belonged to me, yet it was never truly mine. The dwelling, the furnishings, the existence we crafted side by side. Everything felt foreign, as if it had never been mine. It belonged to him. I found myself merely existing within it. I leaned in closer, fingers tangled in my hair, my heart racing within my chest. What comes next? I would need to relocate. I simply cannot hold on to this house any longer. Rent was already beyond my means, let alone the burden of a mortgage. I would need to secure employment. But what exactly is the task at hand? I had not engaged in work since my 20s. No one would consider employing a woman whose resume bore the mark of a former stay-at-home wife. I believed I was crafting my own existence, yet in truth I was merely a lodger in his world. The revelation struck me with the force of an unyielding barrier. I was receiving only a fraction. The house was not meant to be mine. I was receiving nothing in return. I walked away with nothing but the clothes purchased with his money and the phone clutched in my hand. I reclined on the couch, gazing at the ceiling, tallying each misstep I had taken. I revisited it in my thoughts, each foolish choice. Every instance I dismissed the quiet whisper within me urging, "Don't go there, Heather. Exercise caution in your approach with him." Yet I forged ahead regardless. Exultation, folly. As I navigated through my messages, my thumb lingered above Matt's name. I understood that reaching out to him would alter nothing, yet I lingered over the decision as if it held the power to do so. What could I possibly express? Excuse me? I did not intend for it to come across that way. I found myself engulfed in a sense of ennui. Negative. All of that is irrelevant at this moment. He bestowed upon me an opportunity. He bestowed upon me countless opportunities over the years. I turned a blind eye to each and every one. I launched Instagram, gliding past the images of girls I once admired, those who appeared to possess everything in perfect harmony. Vibrant outfits, spontaneous getaways, embodying the essence of a life well lived. I once aspired to emulate their ways. I once believed I was entitled to what they possessed. Yet, at that moment, all that met my gaze was the stark reflection of myself in the dark glass of my phone screen. Without any makeup. Unfiltered. Only I. For the first time, I found myself discontent with the reflection before me. The chime of the doorbell pierced through the haze of my contemplation. I recognized the presence before I even rose from my seat. I ambled forward, my heart racing within the confines of my chest. I swung the door wide, and there he stood, a figure etched in the moment. A man clad in a tan vest, holding a clipboard with purpose. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Callahan," he inquired, maintaining a courteous yet straightforward demeanor. "Indeed," I murmured, fully aware of what lay ahead. He extended an envelope toward me. "You have received your summons." I accepted it, gave a nod, and gently shut the door behind me. Silence prevails. There are no inquiries. I had already discerned its essence. I sat at the kitchen table, gazing at that envelope as if it were a dangerous artifact. I hesitated to open it immediately. I found it unnecessary. There is a profound agony in the realization that impending loss is not merely a fate, but a consequence of one's own making. Time slipped away as I lingered in that moment, but at last I found the courage to open it. Amidst the labyrinth of legal jargon that eluded my comprehension, a single sentence emerged, resonating with clarity. The petitioner seeks the dissolution of marriage, requesting no division of assets or support for the respondent. I perused it thrice to ensure my understanding was complete. There shall be no division of assets. Funds are lacking. There is no dwelling. There is no assistance available. Only I remain. Isolated. I carefully folded it, placed it on the table, and gazed out the window. Once my world brimmed with vastness and endless potential, yet now it seems confined, as if the very walls are inching closer. The regret echoed fiercely now, more resounding than my pride, more resounding than my justifications, more intense than anything I had ever experienced. I believed I was triumphing, yet the truth was that I was losing all along. Interestingly, I found myself feeling no anger towards Matt at all. I was furious with myself, for I was aware. I was aware of the truth. Understanding the right path holds little value if one fails to take the steps necessary to follow it. It seems I must begin anew. Without a husband, there is no dwelling. There are no savings. Only I remain. I have always proclaimed my desire for freedom. At last I possess it, yet it envelopes me like a cage.